For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
Welcome to the Gist on Stat News Global. I'm Ramananda Gupta. Our very special guest today is Dr. Samudra Gupta Kashyap, eminent journalist, author, and former State Information Commissioner of Assam, who was appointed Chancellor of Nagaland University in August last year. A bilingual writer, Dr. Kashyap is the author and co-author of over 20 books in English and Assamese, and he has been actively following, among other issues, the ULFA movement since his time as a journalist. And today we will be discussing the peace accord between the government and the Arabinda Rajkhowa faction of the United Liberation Front of Assam, or ULFA as it is better known, in New Delhi on December 29. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Kashyap. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Dr. Kashyap, I really appreciate your taking time from your busy schedule to join us today. But since we do have a shortage of time, let's start right from the top. Let's start with the key elements of the accord, and why is it so important? I mean, what is the implications of this accord?
Thank you. First of all, the entire text of the accord has not yet been released by the government. Whatever we get is a sketchy picture of a press release by the Press Information Bureau in Delhi, and also a statement made by the Assam Chief Minister subsequently after the accord was signed. Mm-hmm. But nevertheless, as is available, whatever is available at the moment, without having the complete full text of the accord, we find that there are two basic things that have been addressed. One is the long pending issue of constitutional rights and protection to the indigenous communities of Assam in the backdrop of the large-scale infiltration from the neighboring country, that is Bangladesh, or its earlier version, the East Pakistan, and secondly, also to address the issue of economic backwardness or economic development, whichever way you look at it. These are the two basic issues which have been addressed in this particular accord. What we find is that the most important thing is that the demand has been there since 1970-71, since the Bangladesh Liberation War, the arrival of millions of refugees from there, and the failure of the then government to ensure that all the refugees went back to their new country, and that so many of them have left behind, and then intermixed with a similar kind of population who have been here since the time of the Bengal partition of Bengal of 1905. And every time when you go to assembly or go to parliament, you see the questions and the replies, you find that the government version, we have not been able to detect these people because they get mixed with the similar kind of people who had come here before. So here, the demand had been that the issue has been that there's been a demographic invasion of Assam, which has been very clearly pointed out by the Supreme Court of India in its very famous judgment while striking down the IMDT Act in July 1996. And also that famous report by a former governor of Assam, General S.K. Sinha, to the President of India in 1998, where he had mentioned that there has been a demographic invasion, which is a continuation of the demand for inclusion of Bengal and Assam in the Pakistan of 1947. So these two issues have been apparently addressed, with the Chief Minister pointing out, and also the accord leaders, signatories saying that with the signing of this accord, and with the simultaneous delimitation process which has been started in Assam or has been already done in Assam in the last couple of months, it now appears that the fear or the apprehension that the infiltrators, the Bangladeshis or their progeny would have a majority in the, or an access to the state assembly has been tried to be addressed, where it says that out of 126 assembly constituencies in Assam, now, at least 102 have been secured, quote unquote, secured, where no persons of such origin would be able to contest, or even if they contest, they will not be able to win. That is the kind of demographic rearrangement of the assembly constituencies that have been done through the delimitation. That was one of the basic issues which was there in the initial period of the ULFA, as well as with the ASU movement, if you remember, 1979, that there has been a demographic invasion of Assam. The indigenous communities, including all the Indian communities living in Assam, are facing a threat, and there is a threat to the territorial integration of the country. So this is the basic. And the second is, of course, development. So there is a package of 1,50,000 crore rupees. Various development projects have been put there, including announcement that two major investors, one Tata's and another company, they would be in Assam in the next few months with huge investments and setting up major plants. Right. So these are the two issues.
Hmm. So, the negotiations have been going on for a long time for this particular accord. What do you think was the main sort of thing that finally sort of, helped make this accord possible? What was the key sort of factor that actually that either the government conceded or the ULFA conceded that actually made this accord happen now?
Mhm. Yeah. Right. In the last few years, particularly in the time of the present regime in Assam, led by Dr. Himanta Biswa Sharma, or even his predecessor, Sarbananda Sonowal, in a combination with the center, they have been able to assure the people that this is one government which is going to address the issue of the illiteration and the issue of the fear of being wiped out by because of the demographic invasion or because of the large-scale infiltration from across the border.
Right.
So this issue has been, they have been able to really address this issue from the very beginning of the establishment of this government. And some of the early signs that have shown was that the traditional religious institutions of Assam, the Vaishnavite monasteries, those have been cleared of cleared of encroachers, most of whom come from that same stock. Similarly,
Hmm.
encroachment in Kaziranga National Park and several other national parks, and the encroachers here were again people of that origin who have been removed from there. So these were the two things which, in fact, uh, made the people believe that yes, this is a government which is going to really address the basic issue.
I
Part
see.
one. Part two, all the other militant groups in the state of Assam have already surrendered. They've signed the MOU with the government. They have settled down and they have, with accords and all. And only the ULFA was left. But the ULFA issue was lingering because the ULFA had split after Arabinda Rajkhowa and Anup Chetia, the chairman and the general secretary respectively, had come out. They were arrested they were in detention in Bangladesh and they were handed over, though we do not have a repatriation treaty, but they were handed over after this government came to power. And since then, majority of the ULFA militants have rallied behind them and they have designated themselves as ULFA Pro-Talk, leaving Paresh Barua, the chief of the armed wing of the original group, out in somewhere in China or in Myanmar, where he's left with
Hmm.
only about 200, at the most 200 with him. So the majority are here.
Right. So, if you could just once, you were just explaining why, what was the main reason for this accord to have come through at this particular moment? What were the main stumbling blocks that were removed? But subsequent to that, you were also talking about Paresh Barua, and you said that Paresh Barua is no longer a very relevant factor because he has very few people with him. But he can still cause some mischief, right? I mean, if he wants to, can he sort of derail the accord in some way, perhaps? I mean, or do you think the government might have to sign a separate agreement with him?
I think the government is at the moment trying to isolate him as much as they can. But yes, he
Hmm.
has a nuisance value, definitely. He can cause any kind of mischief. In fact, he did it. He was aware that the talks were in the offing, or the final draft was in the offing. So he sent out
Hmm.
a few boys and they caused a few small explosions here and there. That was a warning that he
Hmm.
gave. But then, by doing so, he can only cause a disturbance. He will not be able to get the support of the people as they had tried to manage to do it 20 years or 30 years ago. Because whenever
Hmm.
the ULFA or particularly Paresh Barua comes into the scene or his name is uttered, the people are generally reminded of a particular incident of 2004, which when they had caused a huge explosion in a town called Dhemaji in eastern Assam, where
Right.
on the Independence Day, and 14 young little children were killed in that. So every time
Right.
people talk about or he tries to attain prominence, the chief minister or the people or even the other people who matter, they
Hmm.
remind that incident, they recall that incident. So that is one
Yes.
where you can really put him down.
Sir, I noticed a sort of press release issued by his faction, which spoke of how this time the photograph taken after the signing of the accord had the ULFA leaders behind the central leaders or something like that. Is that really a big issue, or he's just trying to make a mountain of a molehill?
No, see, that doesn't seem to be an issue because if you look at the local newspaper, the reactions coming from the editors, from the other intellectuals, other leaders, yes, it's a prestige issue for a section of people that while the previous accords were when it was signed with Mohanta, the then Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi was there, when the framework agreement was signed with NSC and the NSCN chief and the Prime Minister were there, and they were standing and holding hands and coming on the same line. But here it looks like a group photograph where the union minister, home minister, and the chief minister are sitting and they are standing behind like
Right.
schoolboys. That does have an effect. That does have has an effect. But that's not
Uh-huh.
going to last long because generally speaking, the people of Assam, because I keep traveling across the region, I find that there's
Right.
no more any kind of enchantment for the ULFA.
Okay. Okay. So, sir, since we are running short of time anyway, and I know you also have a very hectic schedule from which you've taken time out for this, let me just try and get some sense of, what is your assessment of the talks? Is this the end of the ULFA as we know it?
No, see, every time what happens, every time there's an accord and with the main leaders, well, one person props up or one faction is left behind. This had happened even with the accord when it was signed between the All Assam Students Union and the Government of India in 1985. Some people opposed it and they stayed outside it. So this, I think, will continue for some time till the time Paresh Barua remains in prominence. In like
Mm-hmm.
the NSCN, we've seen that the government is bidding time, waiting for some moment. Similarly, Paresh is getting old. The recruitments are low. Very few people are getting attracted, even in his hometown or his village.
Mm-hmm.
Hardly 10 boys from that village has gone to his section in the last, seriously, in the last 10, 12 years. So that is a kind of a signal that I think people are no longer enamored with him. Young people are not getting attracted to Paresh Barua. But that nuisance value will
Mm-hmm.
continue till Paresh Barua is around.
Uh-huh. And he's basically, from what I heard from you, he's supported by China and perhaps even the Myanmar government in some way, or is it just China?
He he has his huge. He stays somewhere. According to reports, he stays somewhere. No, on either side of the China-Myanmar border, and
Mm-hmm.
apparently he's into the arms trade also. This is what the government says. This is not my assessment. This is what the government claims
Mm-hmm.
that he's also into the arms trade. Uh,
Mm-hmm. But overall, you'll agree that the ULFA is not really that big a force to reckon with now, then, in that case. And that might actually sort of.
Once of yeah, that happened immediately
Uh-huh.
after Rajkhowa and Shah, both those the top leaders had come back from Bangladesh, and then
Right.
when they went around to meet the people. People also found that the way
Mm-hmm.
the things that they were talking were gradually not becoming not have remained what would I say relevant. Things have changed since the time they had gone out of India to take refuge in Bangladesh or Myanmar or Bhutan. The psychology of the people have
Right.
changed. The mindset has changed. Politics has changed. The approach
Mm-hmm.
of the center towards northeast of Assam has also changed. So all this, the rapidly changing scenario, particularly the mindset of the young people in Assam, that also needs to be taken into consideration when we look at the ULFA at the moment, or militancy at the moment.
Since we're running out of time, let me close with a last question, sir. Is this the end of the ULFA as we know it, or do you still see, the sort of agitation going on for some more time?
So the ULFA had practically declined since Rajkhowa and Chetia and the chairman and the general secretary had returned from Bangladesh, and the government had isolated Paresh Barua. And Paresh Barua is left, as I said, with only a few, about at the most 200 boys with him. And they do not have much of active cadres within the state at the moment. And though we see that in the previous accords with other militant groups across the region, we find that some elements always remain outside. There would be a dissatisfied small group there. So in this case also, I think some residue would remain of the ULFA, whether Paresh Barua is around or not, to create some kind of trouble. But then, broadly speaking, I think this is practically the end of the ULFA. This is a major decline had already started about years ago, 12 years ago, post 2004, as I said, after the Dhemaji blast of 15th August 2004, when 13 children were killed. and the entire mindset of the people has changed. Whatever they had inside their minds about the ULFA had already evaporated around the time.
Mhm. That's a positive note to sort of end this conversation with. And since we seem to be having a bit of technical issues here, I'd like to close it here. Thank you so much for joining us today, sir. It's been a pleasure to have you with us, and I look forward to having you again sometime soon.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure on my side also. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. That was Dr. Samudra Gupta Kashyap, eminent journalist, author, and the Chancellor of Nagaland University, talking to us about the recently signed accord with the ULFA. I do hope you enjoyed this particular episode of The Gist, and I look forward to seeing you all again the next time. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Till we meet again, this is Ramananda Sengupta signing off.